You ever walk outside your own house and feel like you're being invaded by entitled people who think your land is a community playground? That's exactly what happened when Karen, the HOA president next door, decided she had more rights to my private lake than I did. And when she built a gate into my property like she owned it, she had no idea she was picking a fight with a man who builds fences for fun and revenge for peace. You ever walk outside your own house and feel like you're being invaded by entitled people who think your land is a community playground? That's exactly what happened when Karen, the HOA president next door, decided she had more rights to my private lake than I did. And when she built a gate into my property like she owned it, she had no idea she was picking a fight with a man who builds fences for fun and revenge for peace. I've lived on this ranch for 7 years, bought it after retiring early from the military. The land came with two things I treasured more than gold: a private lake and the peace to enjoy it. The boundary was crystal clear, literally fenced and marked since 1954. But peace is fragile when an HOA sprouts up nearby. 3 years ago, a gated suburban development named Willow Pines was built right next to my property line. That's when Karen moved in. You know the type. Yoga at 6, HOA meeting at 7, complaints by 8. She ran the HOA like a military operation, minus the discipline and with way more screaming. I had no interest in their affairs, but Karen had interest in mine, especially my lake. It started with casual strolls past my fence, then not so subtle questions like, "You don't own the entire lake, do you? That seems greedy." One morning I woke to the sound of drilling, and there it was, a metal gate bolted directly into my fence. Not on her land, not on shared land. Right. On mine. I walked over calmly, thinking maybe it was a mistake. Karen was standing there sipping coffee like she just installed a garden gnome. "I figured it was easier to just put a small access gate," she chirped. "The HOA board voted. We want lake access for community kayaking." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "This isn't a communal dock," I said. "This is my land, my water." Karen didn't blink. "Well, then call someone. We'll see what the county says." She walked off like she'd won a prize. I didn't call the county. I called Jim, the county surveyor. He and I go back a decade, and he had the original maps handy. The verdict? The gate was 6 feet into my property. I gave Karen a written notice to remove it within 48 hours. She laughed, literally laughed. "You're not even in the HOA. You can't tell me what to do." So I gave her a day. On the second morning, I grabbed my tools and began unbolting the gate myself. That's when Karen stormed out of her house, phone in hand, and screamed, "I'm calling 911. You're destroying HOA property." I thought she was bluffing. She wasn't. 15 minutes later, a sheriff's deputy pulled up. I calmly handed him the deed, the survey report, and the notice I gave Karen. Karen ranted for 20 minutes, accusing me of harassment, trespassing on shared assets, and even threatening community harmony. The deputy squinted at her, then looked back at the gate, then back at me. "Ma'am," he said flatly, "this gate is illegally installed. He's within his rights to remove it." Karen's face turned fire hydrant red. "This isn't over," she hissed. She was right. That night I stared at the lake and had a thought. If she wanted access so bad, why not give her a view she'd never forget? So I did what any rancher with an excavator, a dozen concrete panels, and a bone-deep need for peace would do. I built a wall, 10 feet high, 40 feet wide. I poured the footings that evening, hauled the panels in at 4 a.m., and by sunrise the HOA gate to the lake was now facing a smooth concrete wall that might as well have been a castle barrier. But the best part? I didn't just build the wall, I decorated it. A massive hand-painted sign in bold red letters read, "Karen was furious." By 8 a.m., she was back with her phone, yelling that I was violating view rights. She even claimed I was decreasing HOA property value. "This is aesthetic terrorism," she shrieked. I simply nodded and pointed to the freshly mounted camera above the wall. "Smile for the HOA newsletter." A week later, I received a letter from the county code office. Karen had filed a complaint that my wall was unauthorized construction. I called the inspector personally and invited him over. Turns out the wall was legal because it wasn't a structure, just a decorative fence extension for agricultural privacy. Better yet, when the inspector arrived, I gave him drone footage. Footage I'd taken of Karen hosting another unauthorized HOA kayak party just 2 days before the wall went up. Trespassing. Again. The inspector added a violation report to Karen's HOA. I heard the fine was $7,500. The cherry on top? A week after that, the HOA board voted to replace Karen as president. Turns out even suburbanites don't like losing access to their lake views because one person decided to wage war on a cowboy with a fence. Karen moved out 6 months later. I took down the wall, painted it white, and turned it into a mural of the lake with a plaque that reads, "Here lies the gate that launched a war." Now, every time I fish at sunset, I smile knowing sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's concrete, legal, and built overnight.